Hello, everyone. Welcome to BFA. This is going to be our first kind of a conversations episode. We're going to do these once a week, whether it be dialogue on jiu-jitsu, whether it be on MMA, a bunch of different topics, stuff coming up, our personal philosophy on different sports. So that's what these are going to be. These are going to drop probably on Wednesdays, and then on Mondays and Fridays, you'll have a more technique video. And it looks like we've got Luke coming in right now. There he is. How's it going? Do you have the audio coming? I think your audio is connecting. Oh, maybe. I cannot hear you yet. Wait, now talk. At the bottom left-hand corner, you should see a mute or unmute thing. Now you're muted. Yeah, you can see it on the screen. You're muted. Unmute.
Okay,
There you go. Awesome. How's it going, man? I already kind of gave them the rundown on what this is. I said essentially these are going to be our conversations episodes, probably dropping on Wednesdays, and more technique-based things on Mondays and Fridays. And these are going to be about anything. It's going to be our personal philosophy. It'll be sometimes we'll be in person, filming it that way. Other times it'll be over Zoom, just depending on what we're doing. These are the more casual way to get to know us and basically just talk about, anything really.
Yeah. Maybe address anything that comes up in the comments or things like those. By the way, I meant to tell you that I've already had comments in person about people wanting to see a pad holding series.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, we'll get it done. I've got someone joining me on my end right there.
Hey, what's up, Apollo?
So, all right, well, we'll jump right in. I figured what we do today is talk about, honestly, I think it'd be really cool for a first episode. For the people who've rolled with us or have trained with us, they know. For the people who haven't, or if they've trained with one of us, they don't know. Kind of to give some credibility to the different style of jiu-jitsu we do. That question is, you describe my jiu-jitsu or my style of fighting. And then I will describe my own style, and then vice versa. I'll give my best shot at describing yours because we have trained so much together and we have rolled, a bunch. Kind of what would you say is my style? Now in my department, it's more jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, sure. So I'd say, your martial arts background is pretty exclusively jiu-jitsu. I think that you're a rare and scary combination because, a lot of times you have in any martial art or any combat sport, you have hard workers and you have natural athletes. And the scary thing for you is that you're obviously a natural athlete. I mean, you know that from one look because, you're 6'5", you're over 200 pounds, you carry it well, and you're very quick for that size. But you're also a hard worker. Like, you have a dedication to technique and stuff. So what you get is both very solid, fundamentally sound, but I wouldn't even say explosive. I would just say like potentially ballistic technique, stuff that can be turned up on if necessary, and then dialed down as well. I think for one of the hallmarks of training with you and rolling against you is your use of, you have freakishly long shins, because although you're really tall, you're also very.
Never heard that before.
Well, hold on. Let me
That's not where I thought this would go.
Well, hold on now. Let me give you the rest of it. So, you have crazy long shins because even for your size, you have long legs. I think we're both kind of built like frogs, where we got long legs. As you're passing guards, as you're setting up frames and things like those, you always make absurdly good use of your shins, and it makes it incredibly hard to either pass you without giving something really stupid up, or as you're passing, it gives you such a long and good control point. If you get that across somebody's leg, they're not getting the leg back. If you get that, if somebody's getting greedy, reaching for your legs, and you bring that shin across their arm, they're not getting that arm back. I think good solid control, but just both very athletic and fundamentally grounded jiu-jitsu, I think is definitely the hallmarks of your martial arts.
Well, I appreciate that, man. You're a weird role, man.
I've
I
heard
mean,
that.
you are a weird role because it's one of those things where, first of all, you're so tough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's rolling with you is so frustrating. You're so hard to tap. It's like chokes just don't work. You'll be sitting in a darce and you're like, on anyone else you tap, on you, you're just breathing fine and you're good. Ironically, because you can't even breathe out of your nose. You
Yeah,
breathe
yeah,
fine in
sure.
chokes, which is weird. But you're a sneaky roll in jiu-jitsu and MMA. It's same thing. You're kind of a bully. You're very Nate Diaz sort of style.
Yeah,
Your game is to pressure people and really take them into deep waters, tire them out, just kind of hang on. Daniel Cormier has a very similar style up against the cage.
yeah.
But in jiu-jitsu, you're sneaky, man. I mean, the stuff you pull off is weird. I would say you're more of a guard player right now,
Hmm.
or half guard player, particularly top half. Your top half and your bottom half is good. You're sneaky because you'll give up stuff like a pass in order to land some really tricky submissions. There's several times where I know I'm a passer now where I've gone to pass your guard and I've been like, oh man, that knee through just glided through. Like
Yeah,
that was super easy. And then I'm sitting in the bottom, like in your bottom half in an arm triangle or something. And it's tight. Like you've got a very sneaky, methodical game. I wouldn't say it's like explosive or fast twitch. It really is like you grab someone and then you just slowly crawl up the entire
yeah.
mat. You just kind of like just slowly inch your way until you're like smothering and suffocating people. You've got a really weird and exhausting type of jujitsu style.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been both it's been the crown jewel of my game, and also the biggest thing detracting from it is that I'm a headhunter. I'm in no way interested in winning on points, but the downside is occasionally when you're competing, especially in jiu-jitsu tournament, you can look up at the clock after being like, man, I almost put this guy away, 6 times in this round. And you'll look up and you're like, oh, how am I down 6 points?
Yeah. Almost doesn't count in submissions,
Exactly. So what's really the work right now is, as I near black belt, as I start getting into that territory, is things like shoring up, knowing, syncing my position, shoring up, making sure that I get the pass before the submission, making sure that I get the sweep before the submission. And that's hard, but it's good work. It's stuff that's making me a lot better. And I think I'm
I would
learning.
say you're positionally, you have positionally your back attacks and your back takes are very strong.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thrive in that. I feel like a lot of your submissions are from awkward positions, and that's what makes them
For sure.
so sneaky and why you catch people so often. I mean, you'll find someone your exact same level, training for the exact same amount of time, go against another person, and it'll just be a positional drill. No one will tap anyone, and you'll go in there and just ironically tap them several times because you've just got such interesting approaches to submissions. With that being said, your back control and your back game is very. Hey, no, my dog is trying to eat my meal prep off the counter right now, and he's staring at me, and he knows I can't do anything about it. So I would say your back control is super strong. Your head positioning too. Well, your head positioning in terms of like where you put your head, pushing it, always keeping that control is also very strong. And I think it's partially comes from your MMA background.
Yeah.
Utilized in jiu-jitsu.
For sure. My jiu-jitsu is very MMA oriented. Like, one thing that we'll do at my gym is the first Thursday of every month, we do it's a Jits with Hits day. We're doing jiu-jitsu class. It's no-gi jiu-jitsu, but everyone has to put their gloves on, and we're not hitting each other hard, but like your jiu-jitsu has to be translated to if somebody decides to punch you. And it's been important to me the whole time that my jiu-jitsu doesn't change at all. Like it should be exactly the same if somebody's trying to hit me or not.
How would you describe your jiu-jitsu game?
Like that. I am, I've never had much confidence in myself as an athlete. So my style is very much, I want to trick you into giving the submission to me. I don't want to force it, and I don't want to get it from you. That's, for whatever reason, I don't find that very satisfying. I want you to, if I'm trying to darce, I want you to have willingly turned into me. If I'm trying to armbar you, I want you to reach for me.
Yeah.
So the hard part is, how do you get somebody to do that? And so that's the weirdness of the game, but I enjoy it. That's what I love about it. Really, it's the same in MMA for me. It's like I could chase you, and I do put pressure by staying just in people's face and making them return. But I really want you to walk into a kick. I really want you to walk into, a lazy shot. I want to stall you just enough to where you stick your neck out a little too far on a shot.
I
Things
feel
like
that's part of your strategy too, is you're so tough and your game is so just like grinding on someone and exhausting that they,
yeah,
sitting in round 2 or later in the rounds, even in just practice, you've been going, it's your third guy you're gone against. They're worn out. You're
yep.
just, you're tough, and they just start giving you. As soon as they let loose is when you're like, there's my opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. By the way, I'd like to take a quick moment to shout out. We got our shirts from the 8 Limbs website. So that's Sylvie. I just want to shout out the Crew Fund. We appreciate those shirts. We're super happy that we bought them. And by the way, anybody watching this, you should go buy a shirt from there or consider becoming a patron, because it's a good cause. It goes to support legendary fighters from the golden era of Muay Thai, and it's a good cause. You should consider getting a shirt. Plus, it's a cool shirt.
It is. Go check that out. We'll
Yep.
I'm not sure if it was through a link. I have my t-shirt in there, but if we can, we'll drop a link in the description as well of the video. And you guys can go check it out. My game, I feel like my game has evolved. I am a very different role than I was when I first started jiu-jitsu.
Sure. For one, your wrestling has gotten, your ability to take people down has gotten so much better, which is honestly very weird because of how long you are. It's rare that you have long guys that are so comfortable shooting underneath people.
I was going to say, ironically, it's not any Greco-Roman or any judo. It's wrestling. I mean, my single leg and my double leg. Those are, my go-to every single time for my height. But I think it's my jiu-jitsu's developed so weird is when I first started, I was 6'4", now 6'5", but I was 6'4". I was very young. I was 15, 16 years old. 150 pounds, 155 pounds. So pressure passing wasn't exactly a thing.
No.
I was Sean Williams. I was rubber guard. I was bottom game the whole time. I was very, very lucky if I had an advantageous position, excluding my weird guards. My whole game was based on flexibility.
Yep.
I was the dude who you could mount, and I would wrap my legs up around you, or you could north-south and I could take your back. That's how my game developed. And then, of course, when I started getting older and I started putting on more weight and started weightlifting and stuff, I feel like I still do have that flexibility, and that if I need it, I would say I have a fairly good guard game because of my shin-to-shin work that you were referring to.
Yeah,
but, I've flipped completely. I am a passer.
Sure,
I'm a full-on aggressive jiu-jitsu player now. Neon belly, hopping from one side of neon belly to the other side, shooting for the darce over here, spinning for the armbar. My whole game is knee through passes. I'm a guard passer for sure right now.
Sure.
Oddly enough, because that didn't arise up until the last couple, years, or the last year or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, again, I definitely think that just being comfortable with your long frame, and as you put on muscle and stuff like that, your confidence in, again, explosive movement, shooting underneath people, things that long, because you started out as the prototypical long bendy triangle guy, and then you still have that. You certainly still have that flexibility. You certainly still, of course, you've still got ridiculous triangles, but you can now set them up from anywhere, from top, from any. You have so much more ways to deal with that, because your takedowns are great. So you're starting on top. You can get them to to do more. You still have and that really complements, because you've always had a good hip bump sweep too. So I think that the fact that you can now take people down and pass so easily, and you've got such good fundamentals as far as connection while you're doing those things, I think that it means that you're always on the fast track past those legs into a dominant top position. It means that from wherever it sets up, should you trip, you can still get there. You got your hip bump, lock up guard, boom, you're back on top where you would have passed anyway. So I think your game is very good for funneling people into very dangerous places.
Well, I think it's helped me too because I had to be so fluid with my movements. I mean, people would smash you. I relied unfortunately, so heavily on scrambles when I was small. So now that I'm bigger, even my top game, I don't just pass the guard, sit inside mount and squeeze.
Yeah.
Or go, pass the guard, sit inside mount, then approach mount, then go for an armbar. It really is like I'm on one side, I knee on belly. On the other side, you spin over, I'll take the back, I'll sit for an armbar, I'll sit up. Like I would like to say I'm a very exhausting role because I just attack constantly.
For sure. Especially again, well, you touched on, if you can get that knee on belly position,
That's my go-to.
Exactly. Because you can't stop trying to get out. You definitely feel like you're drowning.
Yeah. So I would say that's where I'm at right now. I know we have a ton of fun roles. We're the role where we end up in some really weird positions. I know at one point I was like, I was in mount, but I was backwards and you were trying to take my back. Like we end up in some weird roles.
Sure. Yeah. It's often, we will often end up in positions like we're both trying to omoplata each other. We both have the leg over the arm. And I've always laughed at that. And I've always jokingly called it the Ouroboros position, which is the image of the snake eating its own tail. Cause it's like, who's submitting who? Where does it stop?
We're both would look at each other and be like, do you know what we're doing right now? What is this? It's something that's so odd.
I actually know who's winning here. I don't know what we're doing.
So anyways, that's all I've got. Well, okay, let me ask you another question because it's something we've talked about. How do you think, and do you think personality, let me see where we're at with time. I don't even know how to check time, but let's get this one in quick because I don't want this to be too long. How do you think, if at all, personality works into someone's style of fighting or jiu-jitsu?
I think under the best of coaches a lot, because I think it's your coach's job. I think it's your coach's job to make sure that you don't have serious crippling weak points in your game. They need to make sure that you know how to get back to where you want to be. They need to make sure that if, you can't become a purple belt and suddenly and have been allowed to only work what you want to work. So you just suddenly discover that you don't know what to do if somebody takes your back. You can't be in a situation like that. However, within that, there needs to be something of your personality and your style, because, you're going to lose your passion for jiu-jitsu if you're coming in and learning somebody else's game every day. I mean, you should learn there are techniques everyone should know. But that said, I know Coach Adam, my head coach, Adam Singer, has said before that you end up with like a ton of techniques. And then by the time you're a black belt, you've pared everything down to about 8 things that you do. I think that's pretty common knowledge among black belts, is that by the time you're a black belt, your game is actually a lot smaller. You're just so good at doing them and figuring out how to get from one of those things to the other. So I think that's where your personality comes in, is not when you're learning things. It's when you start paring things down. Like where do you want to go? What do you want to happen? How do you think these two techniques that may not seem related fit together? What transitions do you like using, and what bait do you stick at? Do you give the other person to get them to bite? I think that's where it comes in. I think that, by the way, I think it's the same in stand-up. I think everybody needs to know how to move in a stance. That stance can, be a little wider. It can be a little more narrow. It can be a little more on the balls of the feet. It can be a little, it can change a little bit, but there are certain things fundamental to fighting that where you're just always going to have that a stance that is somewhat correct. Nobody's going to just stand square and straight up in front of another person and expect to win a fight. But within that, there's a lot of what do you like doing, or what things are you good at? Because we're all built a little differently too. And how do we get you into a place where you're most ready to do those things? So
I can't even follow up with that. That was so good. I can't. I think you hit just about every single point there. I mean, that's awesome. That was really cool. I like how you brought the coaching in too, because it's true. You'll have, someone who's, you see it all the time with coaches. You'll see a coach who's built like a fire hydrant. He's 175, 180 pounds, 5'5", and with the wrestling background. And you'll see some lanky kid like me walk in. And this wasn't the case. I mean, I started training at Paul Creighton's, and Paul Creighton was very adamant about me discovering my own style. But I could very see, and it happens so often, you see this kid come in, 6'4", 145 pounds, and he is pushed into this wrestling style. Like he's going to shoot in on some dude who's super stocky and get below him. I'm fortunate to where I do, oddly enough, like you were saying, have that style now. I would like to think I'm strong to where my double legs are I kind of barrel into people.
Oh, for sure.
Like a very strong shot. But at 145 pounds, if I wasn't allowed to work these weird dynamic positions, you see it all the time though, is the coach just kind of force his game on people. And it's frustrating when you're 145 pounds, 6'4", just getting sprawled on left and right, thinking you're doing something wrong. When really it's like, dude, no matter how hard you try, you're going to be at a disadvantage. Like you just will.
Sure.
So I think that's a really interesting perspective.
Which comes back to, like, you need to find your own setups. You can't, you can still hit the double, but you can't set it up the way that somebody who's 5'4" would. What can you do? You see that a lot in MMA. I cornering guys all through like the Southeast and everything, cornering them in Alabama, cornering them all throughout Georgia. You will always see somebody warming up backstage, and it'll be like, a guy who's 6'2" and super lengthy, long arms, and he's choking up and punching, these short punches and standing nose to nose. And you're just like, what are you doing? Why would you fight that way? And then you'll see their coach and their coaches, again, 5'5", 5'6", and you're like, oh, you're trying to fight like your coach. And I'm sure your coach is good, but like, that doesn't make any sense for you. Or the opposite, you'll see guys who are short and huge traps, huge shoulders. And it's like, oh man, if this guy could get a body lock on you, you're in trouble. You're not going to have a fun night. But he's sitting there trying to kickbox like he's, Israel Adesanya. And you're like, you can't be having a fun time trying to do this. This looks painful for you to try and, outbox longer kickboxers in MMA and just like make no attempt to press them against the cage. You got the best resource in the world if you're short and stocky. Bully them into the cage, kind of beat them up there. So
I feel like that's what, when he got to the highest, especially later in his career, going against a bunch of really lanky, good kickboxers, that's where Hector Lombard had issues.
He did.
Because he wasn't closing that distance.
I agree.
There's a bunch of guys who struggle there. So
there's a lot of guys
interesting.
That can happen when you fall in love with your power early too. You get a taste of it and you're like, oh, I can always do that. The problem is that the time to, like, you should be comfortable using that power at any point in a fight. It shouldn't be something that you need to dig in your pocket and you now have to do that to win the fight. It's desperate. And when you reek of desperation, the other person is much less likely to make mistakes because they can smell defeat on you. You don't want to overreach on things. So it needs to be like, you need to play to your strengths. You need to play to your strengths and not be a cookie cutter fighter. And you need coaches, talented coaches who have actually been around competition enough, who can recognize how to keep you safe while you're doing what you need to do to succeed. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Cool.
Well, awesome, man. Well, that's all I've got. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close it out?
Look, I appreciate all the support. That's awesome. We're working real hard. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up and stuff that we're continuing to work on. We've got 2 more special guest coaches lined up. So continue showing love. I know some people are nervous about making themselves known in the comments and stuff like that. And that's okay. But continue supporting us and letting us know. We've got other stuff coming up. I'm about to start organizing the YouTube content into playlists so that, if anybody stumbles onto those for the first time or is like revisiting, it'll be organized hopefully within the next couple of days into, if you're into jiu-jitsu, here's our jiu-jitsu videos. If you want to see more striking stuff, here's our striking stuff. If you want to just take a look at the special guest coaches, if you're like, we hear enough of those too, what about, some new blood, new talent brought in from outside, we'll have that, organized too. So hopefully within the next couple of days, that'll be there. But look, we really appreciate the love and support that we get. I think I was just looking at some of the analytics from our YouTube channel, and I think we've got, an oddly high amount of like our views come from people who are subscribed. So like that shows like a lot of brand loyalty. It shows a lot of people who really do support us. And yeah, we appreciate it, man. Continue doing that. Never feel afraid to like, put something in the comments, just saying what you want. There are no dumb questions. And I don't want to get ranty or let this go on too long, but like anybody who's been in a class where I was not the coach with me knows that I'm the question guy. I will hold up class. And I used to get ashamed of that until I was told by the very talented coaches at SBG Athens, formerly the Hardcore Gym, where they said like, if it's irrelevant or something that we don't have time to cover right now, just ask us, once we break, just raise your hand, we'll come over and see it. But it's worth asking the question or bringing it up because you might not be the only one who has that question. Somebody else might just be too afraid to ask it or not know how to word it. So, it's worth noting, like, don't be afraid of
and the
putting them in the
best guys
comments.
in the gym are typically the ones who ask so much questions. I always apologize to my coach right now, Kenny Kim, here in Marietta, because I ask him like so many questions after every single class, like literally so many questions. That poor guy. And every single time he's like, "No, man, keep coming." Like that's why you're so good.
It's to the point where once Rory has demonstrated technique, he'll just look at me to be like, you got anything? You got any questions? Or so it's
That's
like
so
automatic. So,
well, awesome. We're super excited. Hip Bump Series drops this Friday. I actually dabbled in it about 30 minutes ago. Just jumped back into my little Hip Bump Series to see, let's see if I still got it, and landed every single thing we're showing on Friday. So
guys, that is good material. Check it out. This is something that Jordan is really known for. Like he's people who have rolled with him already know, and he's the hip
which is funny because I don't even use it all that much anymore. But I remember I came to hardcore and I locked up guard, and I had never rolled with these individuals before, and they say, "Oh, I know what's coming." I was like, "How do you know this?"
Sure. Well, look, you how to word this. Look, you only have to have kicked someone in the groin once for them to remember you're the guy who did it and protect themselves.
Well, this is good stuff. This isn't groin kicking, but I get.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, like, you don't forget that hip bump. Like, you don't forget it. So anyway, pay attention. Stay tuned, guys.
Sweet. Well, we'll see you guys on Friday, and thank you for tuning in.
All right.